Well, does anyone have anything for an opening? I feel like there was like some more like. I feel like there's been like movie news, a lot of movie news, but I didn't write anything down. I didn't save anything, so.
I didn't see anything on the hit new website x.com. It's the HBO Max situation all over again. I refuse to call it Max. I refuse to call it X.
What is X?
That's what Twitter is now.
Oh shit, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because maybe Elon saw far too many like edgy noir 90s movies, and he's into that whole extreme branding.
Oh, totally.
He's super into that.
It isn't the cybertruck out of something? Is it Demolition Man? I can't remember.
Oh, Demolition Man.
Yeah,
that's a
that
good pull.
weird, like
Yeah.
low poly, like it looks
he
like.
keeps promoting that movie, and I think his truck is from maybe that one or an amalgam of these movies.
Oh, that's weird.
Have you ever seen that, TJ? Do you know what he's talking about? Like the weird boxy. Okay.
Oh yeah, I know what
Okay.
Cybertruck is. Yeah. It's like
Because it looks like like a PS1. Like, you know how when you're playing a video game and like they were limited on technology, so it was just like they had to have these like
really shitty.
They had like really low render versions off in the distance.
Right.
That's what this truck looks like. It looks like something that it should render into something nicer when you get closer to it. But instead, he created an optical illusion of like, what if you lived in a Nintendo 64?
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I think you guys are from the Midwest. I don't know. I am, and I don't know anybody who would think that's a truck. All the farmers I know would look at that and not.
They'd shoot at it. They'd be
even
like,
have a
what the
clue
hell?
what
What
it
the hell
is."
is that thing?
What the hell
Damn
even
video
is
games
that?
are coming to life. Carol, get in the bunker. I always knew they were the devil.
Yeah, that's like definitely like if you're talking like N64, it makes you think of like the tanks from Star Fox, or maybe something you drive in Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
Or depending on the time, could be a vehicle out of Dark City.
What?
Speaking of, welcome back to another episode of There'll Be Duds. This is episode 110, and I am your co-host TJ, aka J Spot Jack Cheese, and with me, as always,
I am Nick, aka Dr. Funk on Twitch, and with me, as always,
here I am. It's me. I'm Tommy, aka Moose, and we have our returning special guest.
2 times.
Josh Matthews, professor, whatever I am. But it was so much fun last time I had to come back. And you chose a movie that came out when I was 19 years old. So it's one of those that, come on. It's some of those
Very
you
formative
can't leave behind.
time.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. It's a Gen X movie, and just like Elon's obsession with X and Gen X, the Cybertruck and Star Fox, whatever that's all it's... that stuff just sticks, and so this is a very interesting one for me.
all right, sweet, yeah, very glad to have you back on too. That movie is Dark City from 1998, directed by Alex Proyas. It follows a man known as John Murdoch. Yeah, it's right there. Who wakes up in a hotel bathroom with no memory. He's in a strange, gloomy town, I guess you could call it. And he's basically trying to figure out like how he ended up there. He's framed for murders that he doesn't remember committing. There's also some scary bald people following him around. It's like a sort of neo-noir sci-fi mystery thriller thing. And it apparently just so happens to be one of Josh's favorite movies, so that was a nice little coincidence. So who wants to take it away?
It's funny that you described it as a gloomy town when like Dark City is literally the name of the movie.
That was the joke.
Oh, okay. I was like, it's like that's the overseas like mistranslation of the movie.
Yeah.
Gloomy
Yes.
town.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we were kind of talking about it beforehand, but so you watched the theatrical cut and we watched the director's cut.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few key differences, and they apparently did the same thing that they did with Blade Runner, where they thought the studio thought the audience was too dumb to understand what's going on, and so for the theatrical cut of this movie, they had Kiefer Sutherland do this voiceover. I found a YouTube video of a VHS like transfer that someone uploaded.
Mm-hmm.
Like they captured their VHS of the movie, and yeah, like you said, it basically gives away every single little detail. Not every single detail, but just like the main conceit of these not Cenobites and like their whole deal. And for Blade Runner, I almost kind of understand how if you watch that movie and like you might not be like, this is kind of heady. It's kind of weird. This movie does not seem like it would need
I don't think so. No.
Like a voiceover telling you. Because the aliens like basically say it in the movie for the climax, for one. There's like an extended scene where they're like, yes, we are looking for the human soul and we rearrange things like they kind of just spell it out for you directly. Mm-hmm. And it's like this movie is it's very brisk. I think it doesn't feel like a nearly 2-hour long movie, and it does what it does really well for me is that it doesn't get bogged down in the lore building and world building that I think some science fiction movies tend to do, where it just becomes so complicated. Like this is a really simple story, really, but I think it combines a lot of things that I really, really like. I had a good time with this one. Like I like B-movie aesthetics, but I also like that noir aesthetic. Mm-hmm. And there are some crazy coincidences with The Matrix. I'll send you guys a link, but there's a almost like shot next to shot breakdown of some like iconic stuff. So there's a link from the Wikipedia, but it takes you to the Wayback Machine Internet Archive, and it's like a GeoCities looking website. It's kind of cool. It looks like it probably came out around the same time as the movie did, which is really neat. But yeah, I had a pretty good time with this. I will concede the floor.
Nice. I'll say being the one who did watch the theatrical cut, it is, and I did skip the monologue and went back to it afterwards, and it is weird, like, because. But, like, I just muted it, so I still, like, I saw the visuals. And, like, the visuals, it doesn't, it just pans down to the city. You see Kiefer Sutherland, like, walking through an alleyway, and then it goes to Rufus Sewell in the bathtub. Mm-hmm. Or, like, the titles or whatever. And it's also weird, like, compared to, like, Blade Runner, because at least in that sense, it's, like, a character's internal monologue, and he's, like, the main character, and it's kind of throughout. This is, like, one voiceover. It's at the very beginning, and it's, like, a secondary character that you don't except for that beginning part, you don't see him again for a little bit. So it's a very strange setup, because, like, I definitely would say Kiefer Sutherland is more recognizable than Rufus Sewell at the time. So people would be like, oh, Kiefer Sutherland, probably the main character. And then you're like, who's this guy in the bathtub? I don't know what this is. And yeah, it's literally like everything except, like, the only thing he leaves out is, like, we're on a spaceship in space. But, like, everything else is, like, there's, like, no mystery if you watch that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really dig, I think, like, my favorite aspect of this is kind of the tone and production design and everything. It's very, there's even a special feature on the DVD for, like, comparisons to Fritz Lang's Metropolis. That's, like, a major inspiration for this movie. But honestly, like, half of my notes for this movie were just either this influenced these movies or these movies influenced this movie. Which, like, not in a necessarily negative way, I guess. Like, I think that's neat when it's I like when, like, some movies, like, wear their references on their sleeve or wear their influences on their sleeve, but it doesn't feel like plagiarism.
Yeah.
Like big ones that it reminded me of that I think all came before this. It was like Metropolis, 12 Monkeys. I got a lot of 12 Monkeys vibes. / like Terry Gilliam, just aesthetic.
Yeah.
You could say like Brazil too. And then the video game System Shock, if you guys have ever played that. It's an old like PC game. And then I had Matrix for ones that this influenced. Kiefer Sutherland, I realized, talks just like the G-Man from Half-Life. And then
He kind of does, yeah.
And then The Strangers, not just visually, but also kind of their whole thing is very reminiscent of the from Fringe, The Observers, yes. They're also this race of bald, pale dudes who in like dark suits who have mysterious origins and are experimenting on humans and may not be from our time, sort of thing.
What is it with the bald people? I don't understand that.
Yeah. Really trying to say something here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I also concede the floor, so some notes. Be very formal this episode.
Okay, well, I had a lot of fun with this movie. It grabbed me from the start. I think the whole idea of waking up without your memories and there's a bunch of guys chasing you is it freaks me out. That and like Jason Bourne, that kind of thing. Like, I was just immediately gripped by that, and it was fun to slowly piece together what was going on as the movie went on, and like, because I was thinking like, okay, this is like, a bunch of creepy dudes doing some weird experiments, and then they started doing like telekinesis and shit, and I was like, oh, okay, this is a different kind of movie than I thought it was going to be, but I'm okay with it,
It's kind of a series of rug pulls. Like, as soon as you get acclimated, you get completely like unacclimated, like almost repeatedly.
Yeah, like John knocked like
Murdoch?
one of the guys' heads fell off. Yeah, Murdoch. One of his like he was fighting one of the dudes, one of the strangers, and then like his like part of his head came off. And there was just, like this goo that came out.
Yeah,
and like
that was brutal.
All, like congealing and shit. Like that was wild.
One of them just straight up got hung. I was like, oh, okay, these guys have like, like you watch these guys float, but one guy just like. But I think you see him later, so I guess he survived. He's that like the super duper tall guy.
No, I remember him getting hung. That was wild.
I was convinced he's been in an X-Files episode because any like person from the 90s who is like really tall or really short is probably going to be featured as a monster of the week on the X-Files at some point in time. I was surprised to see he wasn't in it.
And I think it's crazy. Like he said, like we use your dead as vessels, and so like all of the strangers, all the bald people were just a bunch of corpses walking around, which makes like the ones that are children just like even creepier. Like the one that bit his finger while he was dangling on the thing. Like that was nuts.
He looked like Bat Boy from all those like National Enquirer.
The National Enquirer.
Well, I'm glad this movie has some some appeal to people who are a bit younger. It was not that popular when it came out. In fact, the reason I came to it was the great critic Roger Ebert. You probably know who he is. He loved this movie, and he just couldn't stop praising it when it came out. And he actually did a commentary. Now I think it was just DVDs back then, and he did very few of those, which he could have done 1,000 of them if he wanted to. So he did Citizen Kane, Casablanca, an Ozu movie, his own screenplay of the Valley of the Dolls thing, and then this one, which is just wild that he picked this. Now his commentary is really good, so if anybody wants to watch it and listen along, because it's learned, but it's for anybody. And
that is on the DVD that I have.
Good. Yeah,
checked it
and
out.
It might be on YouTube or something that track itself, so you can play it along, and it's pretty insightful. I didn't know noir movies at the time, so I didn't. That wasn't even a thing then, really. It's but the more I think about this movie, the more it just absolutely loves that whole genre. Now, most of the movie is noir up to, if you didn't know what was going on, up to 2/3 of the way in, when it's probably when you pan down and you see all these creepy people underneath the city, that's something. But it does. The characters think they're in a noir. The humans.
Yeah, I like that.
And so until you get William Hurt busting through that wall, which is Truman Show-esque, you're gonna bust out of a reality created for you, but then he falls through. I think that's the point where the spaceship comes in, and I think I said this last week. That's what it's. I don't know, like a spaceship or not. It's super weird. How does it work? But it's a unique movie, Spaceship, nonetheless, because literally a noir city in space. Which sounds like some 8th grader's idea, but I kind of like it nonetheless.
It's
so
like
the hybrid of the science fiction noir plus, and what I didn't know then either is like all these cheesy 80s, 90s horror sci-fi movies. Like it. I don't know all of them, but is it Hellraiser? Like it kind of looks like something like that to me. Sometimes.
I was thinking Hellraiser when
were you? Good.
When we first saw the Strangers.
There's like the aliens got a copy of like Citizen Kane and Metropolis and like The Third Man, and they're like, oh
yeah.
This is what humans are like.
Yes.
That's
it really is. No, if you think about where did everything come from, well, we have no clue. You said the world building, it's left up to our imagination. Where did they get these people? They get them off Earth, a space colony? We don't know. But then, it seems like this whole area is designed for them, and it feels like that they have watched it, The Third Man. That movie.
It's like the Thermians from Galaxy Quest if they got like different
Oh,
than the show.
And I like, even to make it more confounding outside of that, is that like the architecture in a lot of the places is constantly changing or is different. Like it's really hard to get a sense of time and place, especially like if you don't know that it's like a floating alien colony built for these people, because it's like you see like these old-timey like 1920s style cars, but then it's like he goes into this sort of like retro futuristic shop where it's like there's like these unseen voices putting apples and fruit and green jello, and then his wallet, and then it's like this like insert a coin, press a button, and it's like this kind of futurism kind of. So you're like, okay, wait a minute, they just got out of like an old car, and now he's doing future stuff with like you don't get a good sense of time and place, and I think that's what kind of keeps you engaged. You're like, you want to figure out where this even is, because it's not even like a city that you can even like see the noticeable buildings and be like, oh yeah, they're in New York, oh yeah, they're in Chicago. They're kind of in an amalgam of all of them.
Yeah, and it does a good job of like it's another movie that it makes me think of is Tim Burton's Batman. Like the way that Gotham looks in that movie, just these like skyscraper jungle where it's like you can't ever see the horizon basically, and it's just like normalized in those big cities. Even though me as like a country bumpkin. That shit drove me insane the one time I went to New York. I hated just like being in the middle of Manhattan. Yeah, shit, there was something else with the like, we're talking about the aliens. I don't know. Somebody else go. Maybe I'll remember it.
I want to mention the casting. I don't talk about that much ever on my stuff, but I think this movie fulfills all of our dreams, or my dreams, which is William Hurt is a noir detective.
Yeah.
That's like the ideal William Hurt role, in my opinion. Jennifer Connelly plays a female lead in a noir movie,
Yeah.
And the bit parts, like Richard O'Brien, who's the Rocky Horror Picture Show guy.
That Kalia clocked that immediately, and it took me so long. She was like, "You know who that is, right?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then I looked at the back, and I was like, "Richard O'Brien," and she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I don't know who that is." And then it was just like a certain shot of him, and I was like, "Oh, it's Riff Raff." Okay.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of others. You mentioned Brazil. I don't know if you know this, that the guy who plays, what's his name? Mr. Book. He's the head. He's the old guy. He's the old leader guy for the Strangers. He plays, I think he's in Brazil. I think he's the one who, if you remember Brazil, where the main character goes up to the top floor, he gets a new job, and it's the guy leading all those other guys.
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And it does have these references through its casting. There's a guy from Mad Max in there too, and
okay.
I just and then Rufus Sewell is a bizarre choice. That that always has gotten me, because I like the guy, I like him as an actor, but he was a no-name then, and so to have him as the lead versus Kiefer Sutherland and William Hurt's over here, it was a strange casting, and it makes sense with the theme, because like we don't know who this guy is, he doesn't know who he is. We literally don't know who he is because we don't know him as an actor, but they could have put Kiefer Sutherland in that role, I guess. It would have made more sense money-wise, I guess.
Right, yeah, right. I could see them almost being switched, because I would I do agree mostly. Like I think William Hurt is a great pick for his role. Jennifer Connelly. I mean, I like Rufus Sewell, so I like him as the lead in this, But I would say that like Kiefer Sutherland is maybe the one who's like the casting choice isn't as good for me. So maybe if you swapped him with Rufus Sewell, that would have been like a better fit or a better mold or something.
Which role was Kiefer Sutherland?
He's Dr. Schreiber.
Schreiber,
whatever. Yeah.
You are confused, aren't you? Frightened. That's all right. I can help you. Who is this? I am a doctor. Now you must listen to me. You have lost your memory. There was an experiment. Something went wrong. Your memory was erased. Do you understand me?
No, I don't understand. What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, he's got a very strange accent, and that would surely annoys many people. The choice is supposed to be quirky. I don't mind it. He's supposed to be like one of those Nazi scientists in a 30s, 40s noir, like The Stranger with Orson Welles,
or like
almost like a Doctor Strangelove,
or like Peter Lorre. Or Peter Sellers. Yeah, I was thinking Peter Lorre. Yeah.
Yeah, he sort of had this pause in between everything that he said.
Yeah, Kalia said Stevie from Malcolm in the Middle.
Stevie Carnarvon from Malcolm in the Middle, yes.
But I thought of, the G-Man. Like, wake
They're
up,
called
Mr.
the Strangers, and they live under the city. I really liked William Hurt's detective, but introducing him, just overlooking the city, playing the accordion made me laugh pretty hard, because it's just like, what a weird... I'd like to think that the Strangers have a sense of humor when they're injecting people, and they're like, let's make him attached to this accordion for some reason. And then it's like later he's driving Jennifer Connelly, and it's sitting in the back of his car. She's like, oh, wow, that's beautiful, which is nothing that a woman would ever say about seeing an accordion in the back of your car. And he's like, oh, yeah, keep it with me all the time. And I was like, that's dumb. Why would you do that? And he's like, my mother gave it to me, and I don't remember why. And I was like, okay, but that's one for the Strangers. They're pretty funny in making this guy carry an accordion around.
I didn't even think about it from that angle. That it's just like, let's just give this guy an accordion.
They're really running low on ideas because the whole thing is fabricated, and eventually they get bored with so many different types of combinations of like personalities that they can give these people. So they're like, let's just get silly with it. This guy's super into accordions. Let's see what's up with this guy. Throw him naked in the bathtub. See what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, and I guess I'll say while we're on the topic of the silly stuff, some of that stuff did hinder my enjoyment of the movie in that it took me out of it a few times. The silliness was just too much for me to
what
fully
silly
engage.
parts are you thinking of?
Well, okay, like some of them were really quick little things. Like one that's coming to mind is I think it's Mr. Hand talking to it's like the other strangers, and they're like kind of they're like, oh, and then we'll do this, and we're gonna set a trap for him, and then we're gonna kill him or whatever. And then it cuts back to Mr. Hand, and like he's like floating up, and he goes, yes.
Haven't seen you in so long. Yes.
And it's just like that's like a little thing, but then like on a grander, like a bigger thing or a longer thing, like the Superman fight at the end between John and the Mr. Is it Mr. Book or Mr. Hand? The sort of Matrix Revolutions sort of Neo versus
towering
Smith.
over the city.
Yeah, it took me out of it. It's just like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 has the same issue where like I love that movie. It's one of my favorite MCU movies, but it has some moments like that, including an unnecessary Superman fight at the end that just kind of takes me out of it. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there as like my major.
There were a few, I would say, like late '90s trappings of like, ooh, CGI. Every time like Rufus Sewell did that look, and it would like, ooh. I was like, yeah, okay, all right, this is very like late '90s. I was like, it didn't hinder it too bad though. I was pretty along for the ride. But yeah, some of those little like CGI moments and like it's like, okay, we're towering over the city, having this big epic fight.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think they like overdid the CGI too much. So
no.
And it's like, I don't know, was this a low budget movie or was this an indie movie or was it just one that just didn't do well or something? It's $27 million and its box office was $27.2 million. So
barely scraping by.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, from what I read, it was like a box office bomb. Like critically, it was very well received, but I think it just didn't do well.
It seems like, I mean, like Josh said, like honestly, it's probably because people don't know who Rufus Sewell is. A lot of people, it's that simple. It's like, that's why movie stars are movie stars. It's because people see somebody they know. Like the only like movies that sell that don't have, a major actor in the lead role are like comic book movies or, existing franchises. Then you can kind of cast sort of an unknown because people are familiar with the franchise. So that's how you get like your like Force Awakens with Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and stuff. But if they were in any other, if those two were in Dark City, nobody would have seen it,
Yeah.
That's how the biz works. Because, like the producers were probably right about, a lot of audience members are stupid.
Yeah, for some reason, and I think maybe I was confusing it with a couple other things. For some reason, I thought this was closer to like Darkman, or like there's another movie called Mr. Nobody, which with Jared. I don't know. I was like conflating those two, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what Dark City is about. I thought it was like some amalgam of those two movies, and there were a few shots that almost seemed like Sam Raimi-esque early on in the beginning. I would say there's a few like almost like that floating deadite camera, like in the beginning, like, or maybe Maybe it's when it's like you kind of no. Okay, it's the city like coming down like as it's moving to where Rufus Sewell's in the bathtub. Like it's almost like a miniature the way that they do it, and then it's like they kind of they kind of blend like up close physical sets with like miniatures in the background, and the way that the camera moved, I was like, oh, I was wrong about this. This isn't like a Sam Raimi movie, but there are definitely elements there that I was like, oh, I could see him doing something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked like the sets and the miniatures and like the sense of I don't know, place. It was like a really cool. Everything about it was like really cool, like the locations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely appreciate, kind of like you said, just the another reminder of The Matrix is just like the kind of, it just, you're in this sci-fi world, there's all these crazy weird concepts that don't exist in reality, but we're just gonna present them to you, and the movie does it clearly enough that it's like, okay, I'm paying attention, I understand, cool, I get it, move on. You don't need to spend 20 minutes telling me or an unnecessarily opening monologue explaining what the strangers are or what they do.
Or if they tried to like explain the science of tuning,
yeah.
it would have just brought everything to a screeching halt. It's like, yeah, it's called tuning. You just you change shit to your will. There you go.
Yeah.
Explanation. That's all you need.
Yeah, they didn't really explain how Murdoch figured out how to tune. They just said he evolved somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I guess is there something that missing, or is that just kind of supposed to be maybe that's just another thing that you're just supposed to
it's a chosen one narrative. He's the chosen one.
Yeah. Well, because it's not an innate ability that the strangers have. It's like it's the machines underneath the city that like they communicate with that give them that ability, right?
I thought it was like the machines focused their powers.
Oh, I don't know. Do you know, Josh?
They talked.
I don't know.
They talked about
I defer
how
to you.
like it takes like several of your lifetimes to master tuning or whatever. So it is something that they practice and get better at.
Okay.
But I don't know where it comes from exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Here's a good IMDb trivia bit. The number of the motel room in which John Murdoch wakes up at the start of the film is 614. In the Bible, John chapter 6 verse 14 talks about the coming of the Savior.
Wow.
Yeah, that's in the Ebert commentary. There's a bunch.
Is it?
Is it?
Yeah, they may have pulled it from that or not.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. That seems like a stretch to me.
I don't know. I feel like directors really like to throw that kind of stuff in there every once in a while, especially like heady artsy movies, which is like science fiction, but it's it's one of those like the curtains are blue or why are the curtains blue kind of situations where it could just be a random happenstance, but also if you really want to think about it,
could be. It's like the Room 237 documentary or whatever, where it's like going super deep into like very like minute details about The Shining, and honestly, like I don't know, does it depend on the movie or what? I don't know. I do think that stuff is interesting, and I think there is like value to be gained from that, but like a lot of the stuff in like Room 237 more so, I know a lot. I'm a lot more familiar with The Shining and theories and stuff about that than Dark City, but it's like I like The Shining because I like The Shining,
Yeah.
a lot of the times that stuff is like interesting, and it's like I can enjoy having the context, but like ultimately, like if I enjoy a movie, it's because I like enjoy the experience
Sure.
of watching it kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff is just tangential, or it feels ad hoc. Where I'm always first start with the obvious things. So
Yeah.
John 6:14, maybe not. I don't know. But to me, this movie is. You've mentioned so many from this period, and there's still some like this. But a guy waking up and he's got his whole reality constructed for him, and he should be super paranoid because they're all nefarious manipulators of a system that has basically erased their whole past, erased their memories, and continues to erase their memories, obviously. So they're left, I'm always struck by the end, because one, I just love the feeling of light after dark, and that's not, but yet, what are they going to do next? I'm always curious about that. I also find that the boss battle, it has that where, he's won, kaboom, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And he ends up reforming his world and bringing the sun to it, and there's this literal enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
Like waking up, and now I'm enlightened. I'm enlightened because I've evolved. Now I'm going to enlighten my world. But then he's the poignant moment is when they're in the pier, and he's like, what's your name? He says John Murdoch. So he's taking on the identity given to him by these evil, nefarious system constructors, and I always found that pretty potent, because what else other identity is going to take? But he could make his own, and he doesn't. But I do want a sequel, because I want to know, is John Murdoch going to be like the dictator or tyrant of the city? He's the one guy who's
just
got all
starts
the
it
power.
all over again.
Yeah, it's a continual cycle.
Yeah, I mean, with that kind of power, you could just manipulate anybody to be anything that you want. So yeah, it's interesting. It is a very like sort of optimistic ending, but if you think about it, you're like, there are some pretty dark implications about everything.
Yeah, he's overthrown the gods, and they're aliens, of course, and the gods of the system. But now he's the
Without
one man.
gods,
and now we're at the king phase of this civilization, where he's the tyrant king who rules over the city. Best they can do, I suppose. I was curious. The other thing about that light at the end, so it's dark. The whole obvious, literally, it's almost ridiculous. It's called Dark City, and maybe, Noir City. It could be Noir City, but then it's light at the end. I'm always a sucker for that. When you have the same through the whole movie, and then boom, something completely different. There's another what other movie I think that shocked me, and this is completely different, is The Pianist. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, okay.
I have not seen The Pianist.
Holocaust movie, and he's always within an apartment building in confined space until about 10 minutes before the end, and then the shot where you see the whole of Warsaw, and it's been Poland's been completely leveled compared to the beginning, and that sort of revelatory. Oh, here's the world. It just strikes me, and then it's light at the end. It always gets me, where he's maybe gonna get a girlfriend now, and the real girlfriend on the pier, and the beach is finally there. He gets what. Oh, one more thing. Sorry to keep talking. Terry Gilliam. You mentioned Brazil.
Yeah.
He half the movies or more always has his characters dream of a paradise, even of just a literal beach location. So Brazil is that, and these people are always wanting to escape this system, or what was the 12 Monkeys thing. There's your other one, right?
That was the other one I mentioned,
Yeah, so that's in here. It literally, because Shell Beach, that's the whole goal of the movie, is to get there. Nobody knows. Then he makes it at the end.
Yeah, and like you mentioned the Truman Show, and the whole time during the Truman Show,
I was just gonna say that
he's trying to go to, is it Hawaii or
Fiji?
It's like Fiji.
Yeah,
and the whole time there's like basically everyone is trying to stop him from getting there. Yeah, it's. Is it
he goes literally to Fiji? Is it a made up island? I can't remember the Truman Show.
Isn't it like the furthest?
No, it's like all the it's supposed to be like the furthest place from home kind of thing, but it's like there's all these like vacation ads and stuff around town, like, oh, go to wonderful Fiji, but he obviously can't. And
so then let's bring up the greatest movie ever made according to IMDb, Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
Remember that one? Where are they going
So
at
what-
the end?
So what
the
the Neho?
beach.
Yeah.
And then the whole revelation is they're in a prison beach right at the end.
A place
I mean, also
where no
look-
one knows your name.
Oh, cheers. No, that's where everybody knows your name. Shit. Damn it.
But that, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the beach represents newness, a new identity, a new, a new beginning to everything. That's
Yeah.
wild.
I don't
And
know
again-
what it is about the beach locale that is like, oh, that's the destination of your dreams. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I hadn't like really thought of it like that.
And then Rufus Sewell ends up on the beach that makes you old.
Is he in old?
He is an old.
Oh,
That's like
nice.
the only other movie. Because like when I saw that he was in this, I was like, oh yeah, that's like the guy that's that's in old, that he's on the beach.
Yeah. You
He's
ever
decent
seen,
in that.
Knight's Quest or Knight's Tale? Sorry.
I have not seen that.
That was
Oh,
a long
man.
time ago.
Oh man. Okay, I guess it's just me. I just that's a movie that I've seen like a million times. So that will always be what I associate him with first. He's the bad guy in that. Count Adamar.
He almost
Oh.
reminded me of like a young Al Pacino in this. A little bit with like the kind of like the curly-ish black hair. Like I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of like Dog Day Afternoon or like Serpico maybe. He just had that
I thought
sort
he kind
of
of looked like. I thought he kind of looked like Elijah Wood a little bit. His eyes
Big eyes and the curly hair and stuff.
and the curly hair. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Oh yeah, he was just in The Father too. That was another one that I saw recently that he was in. It was a pretty good movie.
And then I guess if you really want to complete the circle of the Matrix analogies, that scene in, is it the third one where they go above the clouds and they see the sun?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's not necessarily like the beach, but it's almost like the same idea of like
Oh, yeah,
sunlight
that's
breaking
right.
through this constructed reality of theirs that
And that's
you
one
know.
of my favorite scenes in like the entire series. Every other favorite scene is from the first one. But
yeah.
there's one that sticks out. I do really like that. Like everything that Josh was saying about the ending was like kind of going through my head. So I do like really like that about the ending, like the whole like what comes next aspect. But I'm one that like I like kind of just leaving it where it is. Like, and just kind of leaving us to ponder here on our podcast. There will be duds. What happens next? Because like my thinking was like, if he killed all of the aliens, like, I mean, obviously he knows how to tune, right? He knew how to make the beach, but like, does he know how to make like food and like sustainable living like resources for everybody? My thing would be like, I would have like kept one alive and been like, okay, how do we get back to Earth?
Oh yeah.
Because they could be in another galaxy for all we know. Yeah, and also like he says, he says at the end like that's not me, that's not you, these aren't our personalities. And it is kind of like, even the John at the end, like, that's not him. Is his name even John Murdoch? Maybe he
Does it matter?
That's also a good question. Maybe he in his original life played the accordion.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like playing with this idea of like, do your memories make you who you are, or is there more to it than that?
And I think this movie definitely leans towards the latter, because they like implant the whole like the serial killer stuff, and he doesn't. They're like, yeah, we did that to see if he would, kill people.
But it didn't stick.
Right.
He woke up in the middle, so I mean, maybe he would have murdered people,
Or maybe
if they had finished the process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because he like rejected the implant or whatever. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he woke up and then shoved the doctor off or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, these strangers are trying to figure out like what it means to be human, and all that they have is this like memories technology. So they're trying to like manufacture memories to try to understand what it means to be a human. And like, who knows how long they've been doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
And they never really figured out the answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they were looking in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Such a cheesy line,
It's-
but it gets me. And of course, he's pointing to his tuning spot as if that's,
Oh yeah.
you know, that's
Yeah.
where it
Yeah.
comes out,
I
the
didn't think
power,
about
but
that.
it's not
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of cheesy stuff, I think that the thing that might have taken me out of it a little bit was all of the little one-liners that William Hurt had. I guess it kind of dropped off, but near the beginning, like he saw the dead prostitute on the over on the ground, and he's like, "Looks like someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed." And he had like a few of those, like it's like I'm a grizzled police chief with a dark sense of humor, almost like the CSI, like he makes the quippy one-liner, and then the show theme starts. Caruso, I think it is.
Yeah, Caruso. Yeah.
But I found that shot really poignant, where they finally break through the wall, and he's floating through space, and like with his like dying breath, he gets to see the whole thing, and he's like, his final thing that he probably thinks about is the realization that like we've been on a floating weird ass Gotham City thing. Because even Rufus's character, he doesn't even really get to see like the whole scale of it all. Like he
Sure,
knows that there's
yeah.
like an outer wall, but he doesn't realize how massive it is. Like it's a
Yeah.
spectacle to be taken in.
Yeah, true.
And then the other character who kind of figures out what's going on is I forget his name, the other detective, the one that gets replaced and kills himself in front of the train.
Oh,
yeah.
And he's like, and he somehow figures out the whole system, and he's like, I know a way out, and he just fucking kills himself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, jeez, that's fucked.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
so
I mean that's like the
it-
only agency he had
Yeah,
in this.
it
in this
demonstrates
world.
how hopeless the situation is.
That's a totally classical idea. It's just the means of escape is the suicide. They can't change things for the better, so that's the way out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's disturbing, but it's also sometimes honorable in certain societies. So,
Sure.
but the thing that he discovers is the shape of the city, which is in the Fibonacci spiral, and I'm always left, which is a maze, but it's
That's-
constructed.
okay, yeah.
It's mathematically constructed. I'm always struck by how many movies, The Matrix at this time use that as some kind of symbol of paranoid conspiracy. I think it's in 12 Monkeys. I mean, I think,
Might
but the
be.
Matrix has the Fibonacci spiral in it a few
Okay.
times. The first movie, and then I don't know if you listen to Tool. Or Tool, Lateralis. They actually made a song based on the Fibonacci spiral.
Lateralis, yeah.
But
That's
you
right,
can go to a lot of these things, a lot of these paranoid science fiction things, and they have that in it. I don't know why, like why that's but it is. It's there. It is in this movie too.
Huh.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that a lot of people don't understand the math around, but they're like, it's cool, and it like using it as a device.
Yeah, some
Well,
ninth
and
grade
there was-
math teachers use it like, look, kids, here's what's cool about the universe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of natural patterns that show up that are based on the Fibonacci sequence and the Fibonacci spiral and stuff. And like my dad is super obsessed with it. He's always talking about Fibonacci shit, and it's I think it's I don't know. We all kind of like to know what's going on, right? And if there's like this hidden pattern. Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like I've seen, I don't know if it's necessarily a Fibonacci, but I've seen people, and I think they tend to be like online right-wing conspiracy people, but they've like taken the Chipotle logo, and they're like, look at the logo in the pepper, and it goes and it circles and it circles and it circles, and they're like, this is like, and then they start
Illuminati.
looking, yeah, or something, but they start looking at brand logos, and they're like, do you see it? It's everywhere.
Have you seen the video, kind of tangentially related, I guess, of like the woman explaining like the monster logo and how it's like tied to like the number of the beast or whatever?
Oh,
I have seen that.
She goes on for like 5 minutes. It's really impressive. I love
She's
that
like,
video.
you take a sip and the devil laughs.
Yeah.
Bottoms up.
Bottoms up. That's right. I've seen that one before.
Bottoms up. The devil laughs.
Bottoms up. And the devil laughs. Something to think about. Wow. Now, do you know what a MILF is?
So our family was just started watching Lost TV show.
Oh, okay.
Again.
Okay.
My teenagers have never seen it. So but the shape of the airline, their logo, it's not quite Fibonacci, but it might as well be. It's got circle, circle, circle. There it is again. And of course, they use the numbers, and the numbers in Lost are like, oh, are they coincidence or are they special? And I actually feel that, I don't know if you've heard of the simulation theory of reality, right? The
Sure.
whole of reality is a simulation. We don't know who the simulators are, what they're doing, but that's what we're in. I feel like we've been set up for 30 years for that. Like, all the people, including it's official, like scientists believe it now, whatever. Maybe it's true, maybe not. I don't know, have anything about that, but that we've seen movies like this, which is the simulation theory writ large on this movie, and it's been going for 30 years. So now we're actually believing our own reality is that when we've seen all these artworks that have used that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's okay. I want to stop.
I want to get off the ride. Are all of our thoughts right now pre-programmed? Are we a script right now that's happening?
Quick thing. How did we all get here this morning? How did we get to this on this call right now?
I know, stupid, college 2 a.m. conversations, but I just watched Mission Impossible 7 last week, and what happened?
Nice.
The AI, they're all worried about the AI has already scripted out their lives and every choice. Even if they're thinking about doing something different than what they think the AI is doing, the AI did it. So it's similar.
I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like we're on the brink of another golden age of late 90s, like brutalist architecture, simulation theory, AI movies. And honestly, if they're good, I'm here for it. I'd love to see more of this genre.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have in mind? I mean, I was thinking of BioShock the whole time we've been talking, because it's sort of kind of that,
Sort of kind of, yeah.
I mean,
the first one.
With the underwater city. But again, BioShock really melds that. It's like that, what is it called? Type of architecture.
Art Deco.
Art Deco.
Yeah.
Like that Art Deco
Again,
style.
back to Elon Musk's his favorite thing. That's what his new X logo is, Art Deco.
That's,
Yeah.
Yeah, what is... Yeah, there's like that obsession with old style architect... or like steampunk even. Like, that old style with like modern technology in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. 2 a.m. stoner college conversations. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy, these ideas that, like, you don't really have any agency. It's not up to you what you do and what happens around you. It's just something that's been decided for you. And
Well, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen it, but isn't that kind of like the premise of Minority Report? That's like, it's like predictions based, like they know what crime you're going to commit before you commit it, but then it's like
Future crime or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. But it's like, okay, well, if you know I'm going to do it, then I guess I can stop doing it. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know if like they ever explore.
Well, that's like the whole question of Minority Report is it's like, well, the domino effect of like, is this making, is reacting to like knowledge of the future, making that thing happen. Whereas like if you didn't do anything, would stuff not happen, or vice versa. And again, also, yeah, like Mission Impossible 7 is a lot. That's what like a lot of those kind of like AI predictive things are, like wrestle with that question of like where most times it's like it does end up being like, yeah, it's exactly what they said would happen, but it's like it's usually because usually the protagonists like play right into the hand of the the precogs from Minority Report, or the Ethan Hunt and the IMF and Mission Impossible 7 to varying degrees, I guess.
Yeah, I guess all of these really boil down to like free will, and like if you really nature versus nurture. Are you a collection of memories implanted into your head, or is there something more? Because like there's that scene where they're like they're doing that late 90s science fiction, like they show all the cells. It's like, here's the red one, and that means this, but here's the black one, now he's a serial killer. Like they make all these concoctions, but it's like, can you break out of that, or are you just those basic things injected into you?
Yeah, I remember kind of having a breakdown in my 9th grade biology class, thinking like, are we just a fucking like chemical reaction that's happening?
Dude, that fucked with me too.
That's it.
That our brains are just like our brains are just like computers. It's like firing like on electricity and chemicals. It's very weird.
It's like your brain just made you say that.
Shut up.
It's like, are you or are you your brain? But your brain is you.
Yeah, I think it's one of those big questions, and that's why, and like we're all kind of scared of it, and that's why it makes such a compelling story.
And I think that's why this movie holds up so well, and that a lot of people, it's become a cult classic. But a lot of people, it's that genre done well, and the fact that it was done before The Matrix, which is like I would say like the big one of that style, is wild.
Really?
Yeah, I think it would be hard to like this movie a lot if it were after The Matrix.
That's what I was
then you
just
just
gonna
go,
say,
well, this is just a clone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think at the end, that's just the good old basic happy climax. He's got his freedom. He can choose. He's got his agency. He can do as he wishes. What does he wish to do? Make a better city, reform it, create the good life that they didn't give him.
I like to think that the movie is settling on a sort of like there is like individual like free will or whatever. Like the fact that like they changed. Although you could say she's reacting or she's going back to a previous implanted memory, sure. But like the fact that is her Jennifer Connelly at the end. I forget her name is like
Anna.
Emma or something. Anna.
She was Emma, then she became Anna.
Okay, that's it. And she's she's just like, yeah, you want to go to the beach with me? We're like, imagine like that scenario in real life. That's not gonna happen. That you approach a pretty girl and you're like, hey, where's the beach? And she's like, down there. You want to go to? And I feel like that's the movie kind of being like, that's her like previous self kind of peeking through.
Yeah.
And again, the fact that like Rufus Sewell he's not a serial killer throughout the movie, even though they like implanted those memories. It's resisting that kind of the implants, and
it's almost like
even
Eternal
though,
Sunshine.
Like I said, he did.
At the end of Eternal Sunshine, they basically have each other wiped from each other's memory, but that sort of like physical connection is like still there, and like on some level they still recognize each other, and they're like, we are just compelled to be in each other's orbit forever.
I'm a big fan of that in movies, because that makes me feel like like implanting myself into the stories or whatever. Like that's the element of truth, or like that's the reality of like that's, you know, there is that connection despite if they like, you know, had their memories removed or whatever. It's like that's the real, and that just, I feel like that's kind of like the optimism, or the optimistic way to
we're not living in a simulation. We're not living in a simulation.
Yeah.
That's what the simulation wants you to say.
No.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say that is every time I have said like.
Have I ever had an
in
original
real
thought?
life? Every time I've said like, yeah, you know, in real life, since we were talking about that, I'm like, asterisk, you know.
Yeah. I have two black
have you-
cats, and I'll watch them walk by in the hallway.
Have you heard of the Boltzmann brain?
No.
It's this there's this like physicist named Boltzmann, who I think he's a physicist, who came up with this idea that like mathematically it's more likely for the like quantum fluctuations in the universe to spontaneously create a brain that has all of your memories, than it is for like evolution to happen and create you with your actual memories. So like me saying this to you and you seeing me on the screen is just like you're reacting to cosmic rays hitting your brain, and in a second you'll just stop existing because you're just quantum fluctuation.
Oh my god. Jesus.
I feel like the big floating baby in 2001 right now.
Yeah, there's lots of like there's lots of possibilities for what like reality actually is, you know, and we're not gonna figure it out, you know. So we might as well just pretend that we have free will and not think about it.
Yeah. Going with the Cypher route, meaning Cypher from the Matrix route. Just you know what I think? Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
What is he wants a steak that's like a medium rare, or like a rare steak.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care if it's not a real steak.
It's like, I know when I put this in my mouth, my brain's gonna tell me that it's a juicy medium rare steak, but it's not.
Honestly, I mean, I think it's a better choice than the detective that killed himself, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember like when we watched The Matrix for the show a while ago, like I had I'm like, yeah, if Cypher didn't kill everyone or like try to kill everyone else on the ship, you'd be like, okay, yeah, all right, you can sympathize. But then he tries to kill everyone else on the ship. Okay, I have one more thing that's a little less heady, but something that I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about him, with Kiefer Sutherland. We were saying he has the breathy voice thing. When he does like the final like implant on Rupatul, and he's getting all the like the memories where he's like, yeah, I've put myself into your memories to help like teach you how to tune or whatever. That's how he knows how to tune, right? I mean, I guess we still don't know, but like that's how he was like taught.
He
it
kind
or
of knows,
but
because his memory is like fragmented. Like he does see the scenes of the beach, and like, yeah, and then Kiefer Sutherland is like at the beach with him, and he's like kind of there. He implants himself in all of those memories, like being on the pier and getting a hot dog or whatever.
But the reason I brought it up is because he talks normally in that. He talks like Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah.
You'll rise to greater heights than that, my boy. One day when you're older, you'll understand. That's it, John. Practice makes perfect. Now remember what I told you. Never talk to strangers.
I wondered if that was intentional or if they just shot it out of order and Kiefer Sutherland hadn't come up with his voice yet or something. Kalia said that maybe when he injected himself, like to like erase his past, that like he damaged himself somehow, and maybe that's kind of that was the only thing that we thought. But
It's possible.
That was something that stuck out. I
interesting.
just didn't know if That's it. I just wanted to bring that up because that was the thing I forgot earlier. Yeah. Okay, who wants to start us off?
I'll start us off.
Okay.
I'm thinking an 8. That's kind of where I'm at. I had a really good time with it. I really enjoyed the sort of cosmic metaphysical nature of this conversation. I think this movie, on that level is timeless because these are things that we just deal with in our society now. So it's like an interesting thought experiment. But also on top of that, I thought the sets were really neat. The architecture was really neat. Basically, it felt very, very original, I guess. And I thought it was pretty well acted, too. The casting, I think, for the most part, was really good. Yeah, it was a fun movie, a fun little... a fun, like, melting of a lot of genres that almost seem like they would be incompatible, but actually work really, really well. So that's an 8 for me.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll also give it an 8. I loved this movie. It held my attention the whole time. It was I always wanted to know what was going to happen next, and one thing that I did like about it is that I was actually able to follow it. Because, like, with some of these movies, they get kind of ambitious, and they put in a lot of twists and turns and details, and you have to be paying attention at this part in order to understand the later parts and stuff. But like Nick said earlier, this was kind of a simple story. Like, guy wakes up without his memories. Turns out nobody's memories are real. Also, there are some aliens. And it's like, okay, I got it,
Yeah.
I can follow, thank you. It wasn't too much of a challenge for me, but it still was an interesting concept, and I think they played with it really well.
Okay.
So yeah, 8.
Nice. I'm going with a 7. So I liked it a lot. I'm like between a 7 and an 8, but I'm leaning a little more 7, so I'm settling on that. Yeah. Pretty much everything you guys said. I just think, like I said, there was some of the silly bits that took me out of it, one too many times, I think, to really say that I loved it. Yeah. But yeah, love the set design. I really enjoyed our discussion, like maybe even more so than like the movie itself. But I love when a movie can do that. To me, that's a perfect cup movie. I want movies that we can have like good, interesting discussions on. So even though this is a 7, as like from like a movie, like a viewing experience for me, this is like 10 out of 10 for like a movie to talk about on the show,
Yeah,
sure.
So yeah, it's it is a good like throwback 90s cult classic. Like it feels like right at home in that sort of I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but wheelhouse. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And yeah, it's like it's one that I could I feel like I could throw on like again relatively soon and still like have a good time with. So yeah, 7 for me.
Well, that's great. You didn't have to agree with me. This is a good movie, but I probably give it 8.5 or 9. I just because of you said the conversation, and we didn't even dive into a bunch of different topics. We just sometimes just mention them, but you could do a lot with this movie, and just the influence. If you're not a movie watcher, you can appreciate it. If you are, you can really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, this one I have not seen on a big screen. That's my one hang up with it. I do have access. Cool. I have access to a pretty big screen here at my college. I meant to watch it that way. I didn't this time. I couldn't. So that's one thing I need to test it out with. I think it'd probably be better on the big screen because these movies were meant for that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But I'm always curious if these movies will last or will be seen as cheesy. And you mentioned the CGI, and so I'm kind of heartwarmed that you don't find it to be goofy looking.
No.
I can appreciate it being like from its time without it taking away from the overall quality. Like, okay,
yeah, I think
you're
that's how
like
I
you
look
were
at
like
the CGI.
limited
Yeah.
in what you could do. The technology was limited. I get that. I get the idea. I can look past whatever might not look the greatest now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Last week you said, Josh, that like some of us might not like the movie. What were you afraid of? Like,
that's one of the reasons,
Yeah.
because it doesn't look as fresh or modern. And I have kids, teenagers, and so it's always they don't like stuff like I do. My kids don't like The Princess Bride. I can't figure out why. That may be just them.
That movie seems
I'm
timeless.
always wondering. Well, I know,
Yeah,
but
really.
I'm always wondering. And I teach for a living, so then I give any kind of material to students, and they're 18 to 20 years old, and there's always sometimes a generational difference, and I never know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And by the way, vice versa, there are things I think are stupid that 18 to 20 to 5-year-olds really love.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I like to look at movies within the context of their own time. So that's why, like, if I was holding it to the standards of today, I'd be like, yeah, the CGI is really bad. But, for the time and the place, yeah, I think it works. I think it's fine. It works. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that's also because I don't know if like younger generations now are more used to seeing movies that are basically like 90% green screen. Like, most movies are just shot in big green rooms with motion capture and like no real like environments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh, they just shot this in a city. That's boring. There's nothing fantastical about it. I don't know. I don't want to. You try to buck that trend of being the person that's like, this generation behind me, they just don't get it. Like I try to avoid that when I can, but when it comes to movies, sometimes I turn into a bit of a curmudgeon because I can still appreciate something from like, I mean, we did like The Third Man, we did Night of the Hunter, and even Carnival of Souls. Like Night of the Hunter is one of like the coolest movies I've ever seen. But it's like, oh well, it's kind of boring. It's just on a farm, or
well,
was like
black
the theme,
and white.
Yeah,
black and white is the thing. If it's a black and white, then it's too old. That is a very common reaction I get.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter when it was made or why it's in black and white.
It's such a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you know that to color a black and white movie, it's not like you color it differently or like because you're the people on the set are living in the real world that has color and stuff, but you kind of have to, like, sometimes I've seen like pictures of movies that were in black and white, but like what people are wearing or how the sets look can kind of be off because like to get the shading right, to get the colors right in black and white, you're not necessarily going to have somebody wearing something that they would normally be wearing. And I think that aspect of it is like really interesting too. And then like when directors intentionally like nowadays do like monochrome or black and white stuff, like who is it? We did one of his movies. Zhang Yimou did this movie. Maybe I mentioned it on the show, or I know I talked to somebody about it recently, a few years ago, called Shadow. Zhang Yimou, he did House of Flying Daggers, Nick. That's the one that we did for the show.
Okay.
He's normally very vibrant, saturated color movies, but with Shadow, it's not black and white, but it's monochrome. Everything is gray and black, but it looks fucking gorgeous. It's so cool. It's always like rainy and just kind of grimy and dim, but it looks beautiful. And I love color pictures, but I really love when somebody like knows how to use black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Night of the Hunter is another like good example of that too. The work, the like shadow use in that is awesome.
Ugh. Well, I mean, hey, speaking of black and white and color, I don't know, figured we could transition right into it.
Sure.
I watched, this is 2 weeks ago now, I watched what I would loosely call a documentary, but I think it would be more accurately described as 6 different YouTube video essays of varying of varying degrees of interest. But I watched Lynch / Oz, and it's sort of a docu, like I would almost say like anthology video of different directors and artists, kind of comparing the works of David Lynch and the influence that The Wizard of Oz has had on his work. And I will say some of it was very interesting. It was very compelling. Like, you know, I don't know if you've seen like Wild at Heart. That's one of my favorite Lynch movies. But I mean, literally, like there's a scene where Laura Dern has like red high heels on and she clicks them together. She sees her mom like outside the car on, you know, that's like the obvious one with like the Wizard of Oz comparisons. But, you know, they showed a lot of Twin Peaks, The Return kind of stuff. They're like, I do not want to talk about Judy. You know, it's like, and then
about Judy.
Garland Briggs. They, you know, it's almost like, it's not as bad as Room 237, where Room 237 is like, yeah, and this is why Stanley Kubrick staged the moon landing, and this is how he told us in The Shining. Where it's like, maybe. But the two standout essays from it, and I would recommend watching it. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, if it's available, but if you like David Lynch, it's definitely worth a watch. But John Waters did one, and it was really cool. John Waters is one of those guys where I've only seen a handful of his movies, but he's someone that I would definitely be interested in watching more of his work. And David Lowery had one, who directed A Ghost Story and The Green Knight, and I think he did
he's done a few Disney movies like Pete's Dragon too. And,
okay.
Ain't Them Bodies Saints is another one that he did.
Okay, but yeah, David Lowery's was really, really good. And there's even like I think it was when Twin Peaks the season 2 was kind of declining in the ratings, and that was at a time where like if you got moved to a different slot on like, you know, going from Thursday to Friday or Saturday, that I think moving to Friday meant your show was pretty much out the door, because Friday night I think was like the worst night for ratings, because that's when families went out and did things and no one was like staying home to watch the TV. And there at one point in time, the actors of Twin Peaks filmed a commercial about wanting to stay on Thursdays, and like they're basically campaigning to not get moved to a different day.
That's funny.
And it literally ends with Dale Cooper being like, there's no place like home. And you're just like, everything is the Wizard of Oz. It's I don't know. It was really interesting though, because like they kind of drew comparisons to like Judy Garland's like tragic life too, and there's like a lot of tragedy happening to women in David Lynch movies. You know, some of the things that they try to grasp at aren't as compelling as others, but overall, as a fan of Lynch, I thought it was really cool. Some of them are more academic, like YouTube video essays, and then some are just like vibes. I don't know. And the John Waters one is more like him kind of talking about his relationship with Lynch, and like there's a really famous picture of John Waters and David Lynch meeting, and they're outside of a Big Boy. So there's like the metal Big Boy with like the checkered apron on, and it's like Lynch and John Waters in like the late 70s, like, you know, arm around each other outside of a Big Boy. I don't know. It's iconic. But yeah, it's really cool. Definitely recommend it. Cool. Especially if you like video essays, like YouTube video essays, which I tend to be a sucker for. That's all.
Okay. I can talk about the return of a great show called How To with John Wilson on HBO. It's the final season. It's only 3 seasons, and this is the last one. The premiere was on Friday. That Friday night, actually. So that death slot. But no, he's choosing to end it with the 3rd season, so it's good. It's a hard one to really explain if you haven't seen it. But it is one of my favorite things on TV to watch. It's so entertaining how this guy composes the show. It's the entire conceit of the show is it's like he goes around, and apparently he's done it his whole life. He's one of those guys who just records all the time. He just always has a camera, and he is always filming. He lives in New York City, and he the show is like each episode is it's supposed to be like a how to do a thing, like the
like
one,
menial tasks.
Yeah, the season premiere, the most recent one, is how to use a public restroom. There's one that's like how to find a parking spot. But that concept lasts, and it's really cool because like the episode ends up kind of tying back into it, but basically that lasts for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then he quickly goes off, and the whole show is him. He goes off like on all these like tangents or whatever, and the whole show is him speaking in like second person. I believe it's second person. Like he's saying, so your toilet just broke down, and you don't know what your options are living in a big city like New York City. So you decide to look around the local restaurants, and you ask the people working there if you can use their restroom, but most of them say no. So you have to find other options. And so he's speaking in that tone, but it's always him. It's him. He's the one that's like, his toilet broke down. He's going around and asking. And like this one ends up with him like, he's like, oh, and you find out from the repairman that it's going to take a few days to fix your toilet. So now you're getting really desperate for options. And he like finds this girl who has an RV, and he's like, where are you taking it? And she's like, I'm going to Burning Man. And he's like, oh, can I go with you? And then he's like in the RV, and they're going out to Burning Man, and he does it to use her bathroom in the RV. And that's like the whole idea. And it's all this like random like shit, and like he's just saying yes, can I do. He gets a tour of like this hotel in Washington. Like he goes down to Washington DC to get a tour of this hotel that's like the bunker for like if there's a nuclear war. That's where like the cabinet goes to, it's their fallout bunker or whatever. And he gets a tour of that specifically so that he can use their restroom in the tour. And but also there's bits where he's just kind of narrating, just kind of like maybe he's just veering off, like he's not explaining what he's doing, but he's like explaining what he's / you like, and then you think about this and you wonder how these things happen. And he has so much footage from over these years that he has a visual reference for literally everything he's saying, and it's amazing. It's amazing the images that he puts to his voiceovers. And I absolutely love the show. I'm bummed that it is ending, but also like it's one of those things like I don't want to want it to stretch too thin,
Yeah.
If it it's good that it'll stay good through its whole run. It's produced by Nathan Fielder too, and it has it's a completely different show, but if you are familiar with Nathan For You,
or the rehearsal, yeah, it has a very similar vibe, even though completely different concepts for the this seems like it has shows, like
but
it's almost like a hybrid of like Joe Pera and Nathan
Kind of.
Fielder, where it's
Yeah.
like Nathan Fielder's like curiosity about the world, with like Joe Pera's folksy Midwestern like eclecticisms. I've only seen one episode of John Wilson, but he strikes me as like the kind of like you said, starts out talking about a public restroom, but then it just kind of veers almost into like self-reflective, just like existential thought, and it's like I thought this was an episode about finding a public toilet, and now I'm pondering everything is Dark City, everything is a simulation.
It's
New York, Dark City. I don't know.
I love that introspectiveness of it, but also it's fascinating seeing like when he gets in the RV and he goes out to Burning Man. I'm like, of course that's what he does, and it, just like I really admire his like spontaneity in the show, and because he seems like, again, kind of like Nathan Fielder in his show, like probably a little heightened version of himself, and like maybe heightened version of his own insecurities and stuff, but he does seem like a more introverted kind of insecure person, and this show, the vehicle of the show, maybe like allows him to be more spontaneous or outgoing.
Like I have anxiety and existential dread about the idea of getting on someone's RV to go to Burning Man, but if I don't, the show's gonna be bad. So it's almost like something else. It's like, oh, okay, well, I have to do this now. It's like setting up, like it's like setting up deadlines for yourself, and then like, well, I can't, even though it's a completely arbitrary deadline, you're like that thing in your brain where you're just like, I can't break this deadline, even though I made it for myself. It's just like, I have to do this for the show.
But yeah, that's the show. It's short. It's half hour. There's only 6 episodes in each season, and this is the 3rd and final, so it's not even like a huge time commitment. So yeah, that's that for me.
Either you guys got anything you're watching or anything you want to talk about?
I moved this week, so I haven't. Like, I stayed up all night trying to get everything out of my house before I had to get it. Had to empty it out that day. I've been trying to convince myself to unpack, but it's just too overwhelming because there's so many boxes in my room and stuff. Like, so I haven't been able to watch any movies.
I'll just do 2 quick. One, someone asked me what the best movie of the year has been.
Oh.
So I guess we're halfway through, and what came out of my mouth is something I wasn't sure about. Beau is Afraid. I just watched that movie.
Damn it, I still need to watch it.
Unbelievable. I can't promise you'll... I mean, you have to deal with things that don't make sense.
I mean, I love Hereditary and Midsommar. I'm pretty.
It's different than that, you know. It's not, I didn't like those as much. Just I'm not into the horror as much, but this is not that as. He's got the weirdo shock horror stuff in there, but it is. I don't know. For my taste, I hate to say it this way, but a little more literary. I feel
sure.
And I don't. That doesn't sell it, but it's a like Charlie Kaufman is doing weirdo horror stuff. And he's to me, Joaquin Phoenix is fantastic at picking projects and finding. He's unbelievable. So I don't know if that's the best movie, but I saw it and I thought it was hilarious. I laughed a lot. A lot of laughing.
I thought really, the other one, really funny.
I mentioned Lost. I have to say I don't know if it's going to hold up because I haven't seen it in about 10 years.
Okay.
But my teenagers and so here's the story. We showed the pilot to my kids. I have a 9-year-old, and I've never seen a kid react to anything like this before. He had to know everything after the first episode. Tell me everything. I need to know the whole world. And we stayed up till midnight. We watched it at 10, finished it at 10, and he had a 2-hour chat with me about it.
Oh,
and
that gives me hope.
What am I going to do?
Gives me hope.
It's like his imagination was just firing. Like, okay, who's in charge of this island? Where'd it come from? Blah 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 stuff. And I hate to spoil it for him, but on the other hand, it's just.
Oh yeah.
If I didn't, he would go crazy. Whereas my other kids can handle, and the ride of that show is you have to discover all the layers of power, and all these mysteries, and some things are never solved. But it may still. I don't know if it'll hold up or not. We'll see.
I think it's been a hot second since I've seen it, but Chloe, my girlfriend, and I, we restarted it during the pandemic. I think we made it a couple seasons in, and I remember a lot of the early seasons holding up fairly well.
Yeah.
I think for me, Lost is like a show of moments where there are some moments that happen in that show that are like far and above like some of like the best things that I've like ever seen on a TV show ever. Like, I mean, people always hail like The Constant as like the best episode of the show, but like, you know, anything that's like kind of does that. Well, I mean, talking about like Dark City, like I feel like the Constant is a really good blend of like heady, you know, this like time travel, string theory, whatever, timeline kind of shit, but they do it in a way that's, I think, palatable and understandable, like to an audience. You're like, okay, yeah, I understand this, but it's like I'm just picturing your kids getting to the not Penny's boat scene, and it's like if I could erase my memory and experience that for the first time again, because it's crushing. It is crushing.
You know, I think there's a difference between seeing that show. You had the whole chunk of it in all 6 seasons. You know, I experienced it season by season, and it was crazy. The internet, I felt like, and everyone's speculation about it, and that was a lot of the fun of the show. So I wonder.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You have the whole thing. Does that really matter or not? Because it was fun to speculate about as it was going.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of streaming shows that I've noticed, they went back to that model. Where I think, you know, 2012, 2013, that binging was the whole thing. Like, we dump a whole season. It's like, this is the most craveable, bingeable show of all time. But then you don't have that week to think about it. But then like shows now, like Succession, Better Call Saul, like even like, you know, Righteous Gemstones we're watching right now, they've gone week to week, I've noticed. And it hasn't led in like a decline of popularity. And I think you need that week to, like, you know, kind of let it sit with you and then talk with your friends like, oh my God, can you believe that this happened? What's going to happen next? And it turns it back into like a weekly event where it's like you binge it all and then it's gone, and then you're like, well, I guess on to the next thing to consume for 8 hours, and then I'm done with. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah,
I agree.
I would almost want to watch Lost, and I would almost like, but then that's like 6 years it's gonna take to, you know,
you have to wait several months between seasons as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say
exactly how they did it.
Yeah, if your kid had to wait like 5 or 6 years to finish the show, what that would do to him, that'd be nuts.
Well, yeah, I mean, I showed my girlfriend Breaking Bad during quarantine, and like after season 4, like the Face Off episode, that finale, she was like, "You had to wait a year for the next," and like, that season ended in that way, and then we had to wait a year to see what happened next.
Oh, that's funny because that one in particular, I never really felt like. I remember talking with Ethan about that one. Like, if that was the end of the show, that would have almost been good enough, you know?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I definitely felt that way. Like I was like, oh, I think the way I felt was like, where do they go next? Like, that seems like such a huge thing. It's like, where could they possibly go after that? And you know, the last couple of seasons, or like season 5, part 1 and 2, I thought were really good anyway. But yeah, that definitely could have been a finale, and I would have been like, yeah, well, I can see that.
Yeah, I'll say where it ends, I like more. like the final 3 episodes is like probably my favorite just run of that show. I think it's like one of the best like finales, but not having that, like not knowing about that, and just like if season 4 ended it, I've been like, yeah, that's good, pretty good.
Yeah.
The only thing you have like left unanswered really is that he poisoned the kid or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually prefer to binge, like wait until it's all done, and everybody's not talking about it anymore, and then I watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
dodging spoilers like Neo. Just like
because the trick is like right now. Okay, I haven't seen Breaking Bad, so there's like okay, a kid gets poisoned. You know, okay, sure. At some point in the show, a kid gets poisoned.
There's a lot of harm done against kids, so you know, it's not a spoiler.
That's not a spoiler. You know, you can. I just don't have any context, so
I wasn't totally sure if you had, so I was being like slightly more vague. But.
Yeah.
It's because part of my problem is I just forget, you know, like if we're over the course of 6 to 9 months we're watching a show, like I forget what happened at the beginning of the season, and then they call back to it at the end of the season.
Sure.
What does that mean? You know.
I
use my power of forgetting to just forget the spoilers, and then I watch the entire show.
Okay, I get that too. Yeah. Because I've definitely come to that more than once, where like I'm like, I know this is referencing something that happened, but I don't remember what, because that was 3 years ago for me.
in the summer of 2016, I guess, is when the whatever season of Game of Thrones it was, where Jon Snow dies at the end. And,
5, I think.
And I was at church, and the preacher just like offhand mentioned like, yeah, Game of Thrones is over now, you know, because that was his opinion about it.
Your preacher was watching Game of Thrones.
I'm
bringing it up.
All right,
he brought it up in his sermon. It was I was surprised, and so my takeaway was, oh, Game of Thrones is over, so I can binge it, and so I binged it. And then it ended on this cliffhanger. And I was like, God fucking damn it. I thought it was over. You said it was over. You lied to me.
I meant metaphorically.
He meant, like, you know, how the Bible means things.
Your interpretation.
Yeah, your own interpretation. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So next week, a couple of us are going to be gone, so we opted to do a Vault episode. Our pre-recorded ones, they used to be episodes from before we did the podcast, but since we ran out of those, we decided to kind of change the format and have our Vault episodes be about, like, not necessarily just movie reviews, just where we get a little bit more freeform with the concept. So next week's Vault episode is going to be one that me and Nick recorded a while ago, where we talk about the Nintendo Gamecube. We do like a little retrospective deep dive into the console. So there's that. It's not about movies, so it is a little weird for a movie podcast, but we thought, what the hey, we'd give it a go doing something a little different. But I think it'll just be easiest if we still, for the following week, we'll pull for the... Okay, so the movie I'm announcing now is for not next episode, but the episode after that. And the movie is... My God. It's just... We're giving so much airtime to this guy lately. Holy shit. From 1957, directed by Orson Welles. We're gonna watch A Touch of Evil. Wow. That is like, in the past few months, is that like our 4th Orson Welles movie? Something like that?
We did F for Fake. We did The Third Man. Are you counting Ed Wood?
Maybe I'm counting Ed Wood.
Because Vincent D'Onofrio is Orson Welles in that.
Yeah, maybe I'm counting Ed Wood.
That's
yeah.
funny. Perfect. I'm
Okay.
excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I am. I can't believe that we're getting all our Orson Welles stuff out and then never talk about him again.
Yeah.
You get Charlton Heston as a Mexican in that one.
Oh, sweet.
Hell yes.
And apparently, the lead actor from Duel, Nick, Dennis Weaver.
Oh, this is the Steven Spielberg's first movie.
Yeah. And
that
Janet
right?
Leigh and Marlene Dietrich. Cool. So, Touch of Evil. I might have said A Touch of Evil. It is just Touch of Evil. Is available for rent on Google Play, YouTube, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Redbox, Vudu. So watch it at one of those if you don't want to be spoiled for it. These episodes come out every Wednesday at 7 p.m. EST on Spotify, on YouTube and Twitch in video form, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more in audio form. We also have social pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And with all that said, I am your co-host, or am I? Or wait, I think I'm your co-host, TJ, aka J Spot Jack Cheese, and with me as always,
I'm just your chattering non-Cenobite chatterbox.
Oh,
and I want you to shut it down. Nick, aka Dr. Funk on Twitch, and with me as always.
As always, I'm your doctor with a German accent that injects you with all of your memories. Tommy, aka Moose.
Thank you, Doctor.
And with me is our returning guest,
Josh Matthews, learning about movies on YouTube, and I think you guys should give yourselves Dark City handles like Mr. Funk and Mr. Cheese.
Oh yeah,
Mr.
Moose.
Mr. Moose.
There you go. You should just have bald caps next time. Or...
Yeah, for our Halloween episode, I was Butterball from Hellraiser, and I had a bald cap on.
Yep.
That's so good.
all right. See you next time.
See ya.
bye.